So this is a tough, I don't know. She's going over to help increase trade while putting on trade restrictions. It seems contradictory. Can she?
It does indeed.
Can she walk the line? Can she do it?
Well, this is sort of what the Biden administration seems to be intent on doing all summer, both trying to establish a diplomatic détente and at the same time remain on course in terms of being tough enough on China to ensure that U.S. competitiveness is protected and fostered. And so, I think that the Raimondo meeting in many ways is the most important of the ones that we've seen because of the fact that she is the one who directly oversees export controls. And this is the area that the Chinese government is the most upset about and sensitive about. They definitely see U.S. export controls and other measures, including the outbound investment executive order that was announced earlier this month, as sort of containing China's ability to advance technologically and possibly even minimizing their ability to thrive economically.
In recent years, both sides are suspicious of the intentions of the other. So we think it makes perfect sense to do this. They think it's just a way for us to try to hold them back economically. And in this country, there is some bipartisan, angst about China, but the Biden administration seems to want to pursue a détente. And there's certain Republicans that think they're going to give up certain things, and that she's actually going to not be as tough as she talks. Commerce Secretary. Another line that she has to walk. The naysayers say we're going to give away too much. Will she?
I don't think that the Biden administration is at all poised to give away too much, Joe. I mean, first of all, as Raimondo said in Beijing on the ground, which Eunice reported, national security matters are totally off limits. They're non-negotiable. She said that plenty of times before. She's been pretty clear that there are lots of areas where the U.S. and China should be able to trade and trade robustly, and that there are just a few areas where national security really trumps the ability to engage commercially. But those concerns are real, and the pushback from members of Congress and other pundits throughout Washington who are worried about the trajectory of China has been growing over the course of the summer as the Biden administration has pursued this détente. We're certainly hearing that from people like Mike Gallagher, the head of the China Select Committee, and Mike McCall, the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'm sure that we're going to hear more.
I mean, we've had China hawks on the show that have actually, posited that big U.S. companies should preemptively start pulling back almost completely from China, with the idea that Taiwan is not going to be a 2050 event, that it could be before, I don't know, I've heard next year. That maybe is unlikely, but before 2030. In any event, if that were to happen, what would we do? What would be expected to do? What would the government do? What would U.S. businesses do if they reacquire, if China reacquires in one way or another Taiwan?
If there's truly, an invasion or, use of force, like a war to retake Taiwan, then, I think that you can expect the worst case scenario for commerce. There's very little possibility that the U.S. and China could trade their way around that. But frankly, Eurasia Group doesn't see that as likely in the near term at all, precisely because look at the Chinese economy right now. It's struggling. They need foreign direct investment. They know that they need to do a better job of courting foreign direct investment. And frankly, what most military analysts tell us is that the Chinese military doesn't yet have a reliable capability to take and hold Taiwan. So we don't think that that's going to happen in the near term. Is that something that companies are worried about? Yes.
Why is President Xi seeming to emphasize CCP ideology over GDP growth, market forces, all the strides that were being made, a a 25 times increase in GDP, but only, as we keep pointing out, not even to a high-income country yet. And yet it seems like they've pulled back on things that were working. Why? What does that get him ideologically?
So I think some of this, Joe, is that Xi Jinping is steering China through a transition, an economic transition that has been expected and that the leadership knew was coming. And no matter what policies he had in place, there would still be challenges economically for China right now, both because of their demographics and because of the fact that they're sort of at that place where they need to try to avoid the middle income trap, right? A lot of goods that are easier and cheaper to make are not made in China anymore. It's not so simple as just having the cost advantage. It's a pretty competitive market. So there's that. But then there's also the fact that Xi Jinping he's a different animal than past Chinese presidents. He definitely has more of an interest in balancing different priorities against each other. He's clearly interested in a strong role for the state. And by the state, he really means the party. The party has been sort of encroaching on the state more and more. And I think, in his mind, that's because some of the challenges that China has to navigate in the coming years really require a strong state hand. And that, of course, has downsides in terms of the ability to attract and keep foreign direct investment, the ability to ensure that the private sector thrives. And the private sector has really been the engine of China's growth for this whole time. So it's quite an experiment.